Welcome back, guys. It's me, David, with Lonesome Studios. We're back on the Nord, as expected. We've gone through the piano engine, we've gone through the synth engine. We're moving on to the third and final engine, which is going to be our organ engine. Then we're going to touch on some of the effects and the things we can do with all of the engines together after that. But today, we're just going to focus on the organ. Now, the organ, personally for me, is probably the one that I use the least, just with my kind of style and the kind of music that I like to play and produce. I'm using pianos and synths way more than I'm using an organ. But that doesn't mean that it's not useful. That doesn't mean that it can't produce some really cool sounds if you get to know how to use it. So let's just do the general overview, just like we've done before. As you can see, we've got a few features just over to the left, the rotary speaker, which obviously does go hand in hand with the organ, which we'll touch on a little bit afterwards. But for now, let's just focus on exactly the organ and nothing else. So just like the other engines, we've obviously got our overall level of the engine, our on-off and our octaves. They all work exactly the same. As you can see here, I've just got the sustain pedal turned on for this, so I can just hold notes with the sustain, which you wouldn't usually do with an organ. But I've got that on just so I can, hold notes down. If we move down from there, we've got our preset button. So we have two presets that we can save with the organ. Light off means preset 1, as we can see on our middle display. And then light on means preset 2. As you can see my lights changing just here, which are our drawbars. So the way that an organ works is as we pull out stops and push in stops, we're slowly adding or removing harmonics or overtones to our sound. So as you can see, the more lights lit up, the louder it's going to be because we're introducing more overtones. But also depending on which drawbars we're pulling out, it will change the character of the sound and which overtones we're bringing out. So for example, this first sound that I've got here in preset 1, we've got a lot of the low drawbars. As you can see, we see the length of the organs, the length of the pipes that are going to be blowing, sound's going to be blowing through. And then as we go up, we're slowly going to get higher and higher. So that sounds like this. And if we slowly take away things from that, you'll hear the different harmonics that are being added in at the same time. All the way down to just our fundamental. So you can hear how the character changes massively, and it's so quick to do this. And obviously this is such a big characteristic of an organ, is how easy it is to change the sound. So if we just play this one note here, let's go a bit higher up here. Actually, let's stay down here. You're adding in the fifth there, mostly. Another octave, another fifth. So this is a good bass. My second preset, as you can see, just has 3, and it's a lot more of a mellow sound. It sounds like this. So if we slowly build them up from here, as you can see, this one, it's bringing out the high octave here quite loud. This one, we're getting loads of the third and fifth. So we'll balance that somewhere about here. More octaves. So something like that might be your typical organ sound, and then you save it on a preset, and then if you were just playing normally in a song, obviously you've got all your kind of standard organ sounds, and then let's say if it drops down to like a quieter part, you can then switch to your preset that's a bit quieter. Simple as that. So that's how your drawbars are working. If you really want to get in depth about how an organ works and the different types of organs, which we'll talk about in just a second, there's loads of really, really helpful tutorials on specifically organs that go in depth about why these work, the history of organs, which is quite interesting, obviously based in the church. So yeah, search those up if you want to know a bit more about how organs work. So moving on, we've got our organ models. These are just 5 very common types of organ that you'd hear. Playing the Hammond B3, which is the classic sound of an organ. We've also got the Vox, the Farfisa, and then 2 pipes here. So if we just play a bit of the Hammond here. Very common sound. I'm sure you've heard that a million times and everything. Let's switch over to the Vox, which sounds like this. Again, very common sound. The farfisa at the top here. Very common sound. Then onto our pipes. So our first pipe here. So your standard pipe organ, and then our second pipe. There you go. And so our drawbars are changing depending on what we're playing. So our B3 and our Vox and our pipes were affecting drawbars, but then our farfisa, because it's a slightly different type of organ, not technically drawbars, but everything's still affecting the sound. So as you can see here, the farfisa, we've got toggles, and this is just on and off for our drawbars, whereas everything else is using your standard drawbars in a sense. So let's stick on the B3, just a sound that we know. Let's move over to our vibrato and chorus. Pretty self-explanatory. We've got three that's a really hard word to say. 3 vibratos and 3 choruses, just selected with this. As you see, we just go around vibrato 1, chorus 1, vibrato 2, chorus 1, 2, and then on. And then it's just enabled with our on-off switch just here. I'll just give you a quick blast of what those sound like. Let's just bring down the sound as well so you can really hear the strength of it. So some nice effects there. Obviously, going up how strong each one is from 1 to 3. I think around 2 is probably pretty comfortable for me. So vibrato 2 sounds pretty good, I think. Sounds great. And then moving on to our final section, which is our percussion section. As you can see, the way I'm playing the organ is completely different to the way that I played the synth engine and the piano engine. I'm not a particularly good organ player. I just know that when you play organ, you're achieving a different goal. You're not doing what you'd want to do with the piano. You know, I'm not playing these nice big full chords that I was doing. The reason being is our drawbars are adding in all of our harmonics anyway. You don't really want to fill up that spectrum with just loads of harmonic content. So we're sticking to very, very simple chords and just letting our drawbars, you know, add in all of the interest. We don't need to add interest by playing more notes. It just gets really muddy. And the second way that I'm changing my playing is I'm playing very percussively. So my left hand isn't really doing my bass movement, which obviously you can do on an organ, but it's playing percussively. You know, I'm hitting the notes, I'm sliding notes, because it's a percussive instrument at the end of the day, and that's why our percussion section is so useful. So we've got 3 things we can change with our percussion section. We've got volume soft, decay fast, and harmonic third. All this is going to do is effectively open up an envelope when we first start playing the note, that just makes it a little bit more percussive. So this is what it sounds like with it off, and here's with it on. So as you can hear, we're just slowly opening up the envelope and then shutting it down. And then our toggles here are just changing how quickly or how hard or soft the volume increase is. So nice soft bit on the start, just a bit more harsh. How quickly it decays afterwards. So as you can hear, that's quite quick. There you go, it dies a bit slower. And then our harmonic third is just where it starts applying. So how many extra, how do I explain this? So our harmonic third is how much cutoff is being applied to the start of our note. So if we say the harmonic third, we're going to open up a little bit more than if we have a harmonic second, which is not going to open up the third harmonic, if that makes sense. Effectively, when we were moving the synth engine's frequency cutoff, effectively the same thing. So instead of it being 123 hertz, it was a little bit more for the third harmonic. You know, we're just adding in a few more harmonics, and that makes your playing a lot more percussive, you know. Makes it a lot more punchy, a lot more sharp. You know, if you're really trying to cut through with your percussive playing, this is the best thing to use for sure. Okay, cool. So that's the basics of the organ. That's pretty much everything covered. Let's touch briefly on the rotary speaker. It can apply to every engine on the Nord Stage 3, the rotary speaker, but we'll talk about it mainly for the organ because, you know, the Leslie is just such a classic sound of the B3. And it's been on slow/stop the whole time. It's maybe quite hard just to hear until you speed it up. You can hear it just slowly whirring away in the background. Obviously, yes, you can choose it for any of the engines. At the moment, we've got it on organ, but you can switch it over to piano or synth with a double tap. But let's stay where we are now. And this is a good way of kind of amping up your playing. It's kind of like a mod wheel in a way, you know, if you're opening up a cutoff for a certain part of the song, or if you want to use a little bit of pitch modulation, that kind of thing. You'll hear here, so if I'm playing something quite mellow, it'd be like... And then as I approach the end, I could go... And it just adds a little bit extra to it. So it's a really kind of creative tool to use if you just want to bring out your organ playing outside of the notes you're playing and the things that you're changing inside of the engine. The rotary speaker just adds a little bit more interest. You can also drive the speaker just like you can any. So at the moment we've got 0 drive, but if we crank that, obviously we're just driving that speaker now. You can find a nice balance for it somewhere in here. It's quite a modern sound, you know, you hear kind of driven organs fairly regularly in pop, jazz, soul, those kind of genres, but it sounds great. So yeah, that's the rotary speaker, nice and easy. All right, great. So that is pretty much the organ engine in its entirety. Obviously, I didn't go into massive depth about how to play the organ, how to get really good sounds out of the drawbars. I think that's probably for another video or someone who knows way more about organs than I do. But if you've just picked up a Nord Stage 3 or you've just sat down at a gig or a rehearsal and you desperately need to know how to use the organ engine, then hopefully this video gives you just a little bit of information about what all the things do and how to make it sound good. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next one.